Okay, so now we have our layers remapped. I'm thinking that here on this processing to get the field number, we didn't get the number of the height, which will also be useful. So we'll just copy this one, Control V, and let's say height num. We're also going to be using this height. And now we're ready. So now we have all the numbers, the field numbers identified, and we can start playing with this. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, and the process is pretty similar to what we've done on the previous tutorial, but I'm going to go through it again a bit faster. And the idea will be for us to determine what's rock. Based on the features of the terrain, mostly the slope, will determine that something, a part of this or some areas of this is rock, and everything else will have will be generated from that starting point. So let's do a mask by features. Okay, and we'll start with the slope. These default values are okay. The maximum slope angle 80 isn't bad. Maybe reduce it on the other side. Okay, something like this, maybe 26. And we'll consider that everything that we see here in red is going to be rock. What's not rock can be either grass or sand. Those are the three main elements that we're going to consider. Okay, so let's say we have our rock layer established. So the way we're going to keep it is by height field copy layer, and we're going to copy this mask information into a new layer called rock. Great, so now we have another layer here, another field, which is the rock. Let's invert this mask so we can select everything else. So let's say create rock layer. Next, we can use a height field remap as well. And we can just flip this. So this is 1, this is 0. I'm going to do this for the mask. And all the other layers will be coming from this mask. The rock is done and everything else is going to be coming from this mask. Now, let's have a look at the layers that we have. So height field, visualize. I'm actually going to visualize it before the remapping, just because the colors tend to be a bit more intense. I'll color code this pressing C. I'm going to go to yellow, which is what I tend to use for visualizers. And I'll just remove these. Go to black. And here, let's have a look at the debris. Okay, the debris has a nice flow to it. And I think if we combine the debris with the water, we can actually use it here, water. Yeah, I think we'll get a really nice flow that I think this can work really well for us to create kind of a more of a sandy area, and everything else could be grass. Okay, let's combine these two. You can also have a look at the flow. So the flow could also add an interesting, it's also a really interesting combination. It might be too much, but we could consider these three. Let's see what we get combining these three, and we'll go from there. So let's add a height field copy layer. And we're gonna bring into the mask layer everything, all those three. So we want to grab the bedrock, or let's start with the flow, into the mask. So this is our flow on the mask. As you can see, it's much less contrasted than it is here. It's the yellow areas. And here, because we remapped it from 0 to 1, it's much more subtle. So now we need to remap it in order to get a bit more contrast. Let's bring it up. And let's say here mask. Yeah, so we get some nice structure there. We can obliterate part of this and bring it further on. A lot of contrast. Yeah, so we'll use this from the flow. I'm going to say get flow. Let's copy. Let's get the water. Same thing. So we just changed the name here. Water. Here it's going to be the same thing. We're masking remapping the mask layer still. So now the water, let's see, get water. We have water all over. So we need to do a different type of remapping here. A lot of cutting off. Okay, so this is the water area. Okay. And finally, the debris. I think those were the three that we were considering. Yeah, the debris. So let's do the same thing. So here we'll get the debris. I'll leave the remap as is. And here we'll get the debris. Let's play with this. Okay, some interesting pockets of debris here and there. Maybe get rid of some of those. And now we'll combine these three. The easiest way would be to height layer, height fill layer. Let's go with the maximum. And let's just combine the mask for now. Okay, we're combining those two, and now we'll do the same thing, but with the result of this and that. Okay, so now we have these three combined. And this is going to be where we're going to be putting some sand. Now, to make sure that this takes into consideration what we had before, meaning we really want to make sure that the rock layer is rock. It's not going to have sand over it. It's just going to be rock. So we need to multiply this part, this result. We'll multiply it, another height fill layer. So we'll get this and we'll multiply it by that. And this just means that wherever is 1, we'll keep what we have, but all these white areas where the mask is 0 will go back to 0, and they just making sure that they're not going to be overlapping with a rock. So let's multiply. You can see we do eliminate some of it, okay, based on the mask by features that we created for our rock, but it gets a bit more complex, a bit more natural looking, I think. And this is going to be our sand layer. So the way we save it is by copying the layer, and we copy the mask into our sand layer. Finally, all we need to do now to get our grass is make sure we subtract from this. We're just going to subtract. We know this is the mask that is either grass or sand. Let's say this is all grass, but we have these areas that should be sand. So we're just going to subtract this sand from this grass. And we're going to do this again with the height fill layer. So let's this. Let's subtract that. Okay, and now this is going to be our grass. Let's say just a mask. Okay, and you can see the difference between this one, all grass, and now is the grass subtracted from the, so with sand area subtracted. Okay, and let's say this is create grass layer. Now we still have a problem here that might go unnoticed, not unnoticed, which is that if I hold Control, middle mouse button, and you see here the fields that we have, there is no sand. Oh, there is sand. Well, there's no grass. So this is, we're copying the mask information to the grass layer. And now we'll notice that there is no sand. And the reason why there is no sand is because I created the sand here, but the flow goes to the first input, which is this one. And this is coming into the second, but it's not being brought in. So we need to take care of that. We can use another, sorry, not this, height fill layer. And this time we're gonna actually copy one to the other. Recover sand layer. And this is all we want to go get. And now we should have the sand here. Okay, sand.